Hello, good afternoon. Hope you're all well. In my effort to take my own medicine and get back on the go live wagon, I'm here a little bit later in the day. God, it's 4:30. But there's something that's been sort of rattling around my head probably for the last couple of weeks, just partly because of work that I'm doing on my business at the moment in preparation for 2022, and it's conversations I've been having with people about this topic, and it's about the slightly knotty issue of planning your content. A lot of folks that I talk to find the notion of building out and sticking to a content plan to be significantly anxiety inducing, and I can completely understand. Hello, Scott, how you doing? So I thought I'd sort of dedicate a little bit of time to sort of perhaps unpicking that idea, because it can be quite a it can be quite a sort of a toxic load to bear sometimes. We need a plan. We need plans in our business. We need sort of strategies we're going to implement. We need to know what we're going to do. But I think if you are a business owner who's doing things on their own, as many of us are solo entrepreneurs, people who are basically at the stage where we are chief cook and bottle washer, and it can sometimes feel really, really bloody difficult to kind of find the time to sit down and have a plan. And hello, Chris, how you doing? It can sometimes feel quite difficult to get that plan into place, but not just to get it into place, but to follow it with the complexities of life that you have and all the stuff that kind of wraps around your normal working day. So the sort of the short version of this live is basically, yes, you need a plan, but you don't necessarily need to have a plan in place that is microscopically accurate, that it sort of tells you what you're doing every hour of every day. If you're the sort of person who's time poor but needs to be going live or needs to be creating content with a plan in mind, yeah, Chris, absolutely. If you are your own sort of business person, it can feel, it can feel very sort of lonely. I mean, weirdly, so Una and myself work in the same house upstairs. We're like ships that pass in the night during the day. It's crazy. We might as well be working on completely different offices. We hardly see each other. It can feel quite isolating. But what I'm more talking about here is the fact that when you've got all this stuff to do, all these different tasks to do, the pressure to plan, because we're told we've got to, business experts quite rightly tell us that we need our plans in place, and we do. And I'm never going to kind of debate that, because you have to have plans, because without a plan, without a good sense of where you're going, the journey to that destination, to that location, is way more complicated than if you haven't got a plan. And I'm just going to plug my camera in case it conks out. There we go. Oh, that's exciting. Why has it done that? Let's try that. Hang on a second. There we go. Wow. A little bit of a... I have literally never seen it do that before. That's really weird. There we go. Yeah, so we have this sense that we've got so many things to do in our businesses, and planning is really important, but have our business sort of plans, but sometimes the content plan is something that we know we should do. This content plan that supports our marketing activities, but it can feel difficult. It can feel really difficult to do, and not just difficult to do, but difficult to kind of execute on. So here's my antidote. This is the lightest possible viable live plan that I would implement. So think about this. Think about what's coming up in the next quarter of your business. Think about January, February, March, and think about the conversations you would like to be having with potential and existing customers. So if you are a service business or a product business, it doesn't matter. You are going to know the ebb and flow of your year. But you're also going to know what your customers, your ideal customers, your audience are going to need from you, are going to want from you. So if you can go into that quarter in your head, when you start thinking about that planning for that quarter, thinking about what people are going to want to know, and then think about the journey you want to take people on when sort of meshed up against the business goals you have. And if the idea of planning your content out precisely every day, every week is time-wise too much of a heavy lift, what I like to do is get people to think about broad themes for a month. So it could be that in January you want to get people thinking about a particular theme. So Chris, it could be that you want to get people thinking about new year, new car. Your expertise lies in making in sort of valeting and detailing cars. So start to prod at those kind of things that drive people towards you as customers, because it could be that if you're a dreadful you have the messiest cars like I do, that you sort of look at your car and feel a deep sense of shame. And it could be that you're sort of just gently reminding people of how nice it is to have a clean car, instead of getting into it and going, oh my God, what's happened? I have a very, very good friend, a very old friend of mine, who recounts the story of having his car stolen, and the police, it was found and it was brought back to him. And they said, oh, they've made a real mess of the inside of it. And he was like, oh God, yeah, that's awful. But he looked at it and went, hang on, that's how it looks normally. So it was that level of shame. You want to kind of, I'm not saying you want to sort of make people feel ashamed, but I'm saying that sometimes reminding, if part of your theme for that month is just to remind people what it's like to have a really lovely clean car, to get people thinking about that, because that's going to be I guess what would traditionally be called in sort of marketing and sales, a sort of a pain point, or a sort of a pressure point. And these are things that people kind of have rattling around in the back of their head. And if your content you're creating can connect up what you do with some of these little kind of niggling thoughts that kind of will be rattling around our heads, then that's from a sort of a content point of view, that can be a really useful thing to do, to sort of use your video content or your lives to just connect yourself and your expertise and your knowledge up with that little thing that rattles around in the back of people's heads, where they go sporadically think, oh, I should get that sorted. It's like I look out in our garden and think, I want somebody to come and sort it out. And I've been meaning to kind of to call a sort of a gardener to come give it a winter tidy up, but I haven't got around to it. But if there was somebody on my radar who was creating the kind of content that was kind of talking about the sort of winter things you can do in your garden, I would give that person a call. But you can be that person. It's a combination of top of mind and just reminding people of these things that they want to get done. And so from a content planning point of view, you don't need to plan that out in exacting detail. You just need to say, okay, I'm going to commit to going live a couple of times a week. And in my lives, I'm going to talk about this broad theme. So the only plan you need is like it has two parts to it. One, decide on the broad theme. And what you can do with that broad theme is maybe write down 10 keywords or key ideas that you want to touch on over the course of the month and keep people thinking about. And then just a commitment of time saying, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go live twice a week or once a week or whatever it is, but just ways you can remind people that these things are happening. So keep people on the theme that you want to keep them on, that you can direct. Yeah, oh, that's good, Becky. I'm really pleased because actually that is, I find it really works if you can take the pressure off yourself, because actually sometimes a super detailed content plan can be more of a liability than a help. But if you are dealing in broad themes, you know that you can say, okay, I'm a bit pushed for time because I'm in the thick of delivery, but I know that over the next month or next quarter, I want to be talking about these 3 themes. So it could be that you just identify 3 themes, 3 months, and kind of stick to those. Find ways to stick to those. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that, but it sort of hopefully gets us over that planning anxiety that I think an awful lot of us in business can feel like. We feel like if we are not nailing down every single piece of the puzzle, then somehow we've kind of we're cheating ourselves. We're dooming ourselves to failure. But it's not like that. Now, look, I'm not saying that's how it should be. You can't deal in broad themes with like revenue planning or kind of that detailed kind of business planning. But that stuff, the content side of things, you can allow yourself to be a bit looser, but you have to be clear about the journey you want to take your audience on. What do they need? And what content theme can you commit to that's gonna prod at something? So with Becky, with you, and you kind of with your expertise on creating sales funnels and all this kind of stuff. As we go into January, there's going to be a whole bunch of us thinking about maybe a spring launch or whatever it is, and it's that feeling of, or maybe people have got sort of products or services up their sleeve. They're thinking, God, if only I could just free up a little bit of time to communicate this idea to people. And so maybe kind of part of the job of January is to start getting people thinking about having a sort of a done for you funnel service that's going to help get that idea out of just the sort of plan stage and into something which is much more concrete. It's moving people from that point where they're where the idea or thing that's rattling around their head is causing anxiety, to a point where it's no longer causing anxiety and it's something they can take action on. So do away with the anxiety, because actually that kind of marketing the pressure we put on ourselves, it doesn't really serve us very well. And given all the other pressures in life at the moment, with kind of the sort of vague sense of uncertainty as to what's going to be happening with kind of COVID restrictions and all these, we don't know what's happening, but what you don't necessarily want to be adding more layers of pressure and stress to your sort of everyday working life. So there we go. Hope that sort of maybe is got you thinking a little bit about your planning and how you don't necessarily have to kind of have the world's most detailed plan. You need a plan, but you don't need necessarily, if you are pushed for time or struggling with kind of that vague sense of guilt about not having a clear enough plan, sometimes your plan doesn't need to be anything more than a sense of a theme that you're going to be committing to and talking about. But it's that commitment to stick to it that's important. Keep banging that drum on that theme for that month, because what we do know is that every time you go live, only a thin sliver of your audience will see you or hear you. So today I'm live, and with the exception of Andy, it's you again. It's a different section of people. So we have to, we keep going on. But if you've got a theme that you can talk about, people are going to know by the end of the month that is your, that you are talking about X and getting people thinking about X, a particular subject. So, and if you think you're talking about it too much, you're not talking about it too much. Keep going. Do it for a month. See how it works. Try that as an idea. Hope that's made some sense. Lovely to have the comments and thoughts as always. And I will see you again tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock for Content and Cocktails. It's really good to be back. I've been absent for too long. But take care, guys. And I will see you tomorrow.